Hey my dudes, I run a bakery from right here in my apartment called Bageriet Lördag, the Saturday bakery. Each week I sell a pastry box filled with 4 different pastries, and the menu changes each and every week. This week's menu is really fruit forward because we are in peak fruit season here in Sweden. I made chocolate mini cakes with black currant, Swiss meringue buttercream, and fresh red currants. Drottningsylt thumbprints, and Drottningsylt is a jam made with blueberries and raspberries. I made gifflar, which are like Swedish crescent buns, and these are brown sugar and buttermilk flavored. And last but not least, I made Swedish style raspberry buns. As of right now, this is a side gig. I used to work as a professional baker and pastry chef years ago, but right now I actually work a 9-to-5 at an office here in Stockholm. I've been getting a lot of questions on how I balance doing this pop-up bakery thing as well as working a 9-to-5. So this week I thought I would put timestamps on everything so you guys can see how long everything actually takes me. Let's get into it.
Wednesdays are all about prepping for the week ahead. I always write out my to-do list for the whole week and stick it on the fridge so I can check things off day by day. I always scale out every single recipe on Wednesdays. It takes a surprisingly long time to just weigh up ingredients, so I like to get it all done at once so that the rest of the week I can focus on actually making and baking. The first thing I scaled out was the raspberry buns. All the dries and the butter go into these big bowls. I have to make 2 rounds of dough because one is just too big for my mixer. The butter and dries are left out so that the butter is room temperature when I go to mix. Also, because I've gotten this question a lot, butter, at least in Sweden, can sit out at room temperature for like days. I also scaled the filling for the buns as well as the fresh yeast and milk. Fresh yeast and milk do live in the fridge. They would go off if they sat out overnight. I labeled everything and put the dries on my speed rack. The next thing I scaled were the dries for the gifflar, or like Swedish crescent buns. They're brown sugar and buttermilk flavored this week, so I added brown sugar to the dough. There's a couple different types of brown sugar you can get in Sweden. Maybe I'll make a video about that at a different time. Anyway, next up was scaling out for the mini cakes. They are chocolate this week, and if you're wondering why I have 2 different boxes for flour or cocoa powder or even the sugar, it's because I don't have enough big bowls or big plastic containers, so I have to like break it up, which is a little inconvenient, but not as inconvenient as trying to store giant plastic containers somewhere in my tiny kitchen. Again, all the milk went into the fridge and all the dries got put on the speed rack. I moved on to scaling ingredients for thumbprints. Half of the flour is regular all-purpose and the other half is einkorn. I just love the flavor of einkorn. I feel like it gives the cookies a depth and almost like warmth of flavor. It's hard to explain, but it's delicious. I separated egg whites for Swiss meringue buttercream. I am really starting to collect a lot of egg yolk in my freezer that I need to use up. I scaled the sugar and the butter and labeled them and put them away. I made a cocoa pan release for the chocolate cakes. It's just equal parts by weight of cocoa powder, oil, and butter. Next, I scaled the 2 jams that I'll be making this week. I wanted to cook them today, but I was just too tired, so I'll do it tomorrow. The last thing I did was fold boxes. This is so critical because it takes way more time than you think it would, and I do not have that time the rest of the week. I got a few of the boxes done, and then Axel jumped in to help me so I could get done faster. He usually works on Wednesdays, so it was such a treat to have him here. We always have so much fun together. On Thursday, I made buns. So many buns. I had 3 rounds of dough to mix, so I popped the first one on the machine and then started 2 different jams that I'll be using this week. I mixed together the butter and sugar filling for the raspberry buns and then mixed together the butter and brown sugar filling for the gifflar. I made a quick brown sugar simple syrup for brushing on the gifflar once they are baked, and by that time the first round of bun dough was done. You know the dough is done mixing when it's really stretchy and it passes what is called the window pane test. That's when you stretch the dough until it's so thin you can almost see through it. The first round of dough went onto a tray and into the fridge, and I started round 2. Both of these batches were the cardamom dough I use for all of my buns every single week. While the second round was mixing, the jams were done, so I seasoned the first with lemon and put it away. The second jam I wanted to be smooth as it will be getting mixed into Swiss meringue buttercream, so I strained it, then seasoned it, then put that away as well. With that done, the bun race continued. Into the mixer went the dough for gifflar, Swedish crescent buns. Round 1 of cardamom dough was chilled, so it came out of the fridge, and round 2 went into the fridge. I rolled out round 1, plopped on half of the butter filling, and spread it out all over the entire thing. Next, I sprinkled frozen raspberries over the filling. I had crushed up the berries so that they would be easier to sprinkle. I folded the dough in 3, rolled it out again, and cut strips out of the dough. Each piece of dough was twisted and then swirled, and can I just say thank God this is the last fruit bun of the year? If you guys remember, I made blueberry buns a couple weeks ago, and as much as they were beautiful and delicious, they were such an incredible pain because they just stain everything blue like instantly. Like raspberry juice doesn't stain the way blueberry juice does, but these buns were just so juicy, that's what he said, that they were so annoying to roll up. I just genuinely hate being sticky, which side note, I got a snarky comment the other day about how I touch everything with my hands, and they specifically said like my hands must get greasy because I touch the butter. And those comments are always so odd to me because like, have others never experienced washing their hands? Like literally after every single thing I do, I wash my hands, which by the way, I don't put in these videos because I think it would be super boring to like watch me wash my hands 45 times in an hour. Like literally after every single thing I do, I wash my hands. Even swirling the raspberry buns, I must have stopped at least 3 or 4 times each round just to wash my hands off because I truly cannot work if it feels like I have anything on my hands. Anyway, let's catch up to where we are in the video. In between the 2 rounds of raspberry buns, I had taken the gifflar dough out of the mixer and divided it into 4 equal pieces, and they got shaped and placed in the fridge to rest. Once the raspberry buns were done, I went straight to work on the gifflar. For each round, I rolled out the dough into a nice long skinny rectangle and then slathered the dough with the brown sugar filling, rolled it up into a long snake, and then I cut each snake into pieces, and those pieces went into the fridge as each snake was done. I was pretty fast today, and each round of gifflar took me between 6 and 8 minutes start to finish. This Friday was all about mini cakes. I got started, as I usually do, by brushing each and every mold with pan release. As the cakes are chocolate this week, I brushed the pans with cocoa pan release, an equal parts by weight mixture of cocoa powder, butter, and oil. Once all 48 molds had been brushed, I put them to the side and got started on the cake batter. All the wet ingredients plus the sugar go in first and get mixed together. It's almost like they emulsify, which I think is cool. Then the dries are added and mixed in. 110 grams of batter go in each and every mold, and after I poured up the first tray, it went straight into the oven. I filled the other 3 trays while the first tray was baking, and this week I did this with time to spare. Something that is nice about doing almost the same thing week in, week out is that you get faster and faster each week. I mean, eventually you plateau, but you definitely are more efficient after a couple weeks or months than when you get started. I made cookie dough for the thumbprints. It felt a little loose and buttery, but I think it's gonna be fine. I spread out my molds, sprayed them with spray fat, and scooped 2 small scoops in each. I need 30 grams of dough per cookie, and conveniently my scoop is for 15 grams, so I just scoop twice. I press the dough into the mold and then up the sides to form a deep indent. I put all the cookies on a tray and pop them in the fridge overnight. This whole time, the cakes were going in and out of the oven. After cookies, I made Swiss meringue buttercream. I like to use my Ankershroom for things like cookie dough and bun dough, but I still prefer the Kenwood for meringue-based things. I know the Ankershroom can make meringue, and I have used it successfully for that purpose before, but I just have such a routine down with my little Kenwood that it's like more comfortable to use than the Ankershroom. It's just what I'm used to. The first batch of SMBC was looking great. I was a little nervous because it was a really warm evening and I was afraid my butter was too soft, but it was actually the perfect temperature and both my buttercreams came together in a snap, which obviously we love. I put all the buttercream in the fridge, and by that time the little cakeys had been baked, so I set to work popping them out of their molds. I run an offset around the edge and then just flip them out, and the cakes come out so easily. I took the bottoms off and pushed them together and then did the next tray. I can get 24 cakes on a single tray, and then the tray gets wrapped in layers and layers of plastic so no air can get in or out. Saturday is always super busy. The days started out really well. My fiance pulled the raspberry buns from the freezer to trays when he got home from work around midnight, so by the time I had gotten up and the oven was hot, the buns were proofed and ready to bake off. I also took the gifflar out of the freezer. These are much smaller and the apartment is so warm. I like to do this by myself in the morning so that they don't overproof. I pulled them all to trays and just spent a while baking off the raspberry buns. After each tray came out, I brushed them with egg wash. The egg cooks on contact with the piping hot buns and it keeps them moist and gives them this lovely dull shine. I topped these with pearl sugar mostly because that's what I was feeling like this week. Once the raspberry buns were baked, I traded the thumbprint cookies I had made yesterday. I filled each cookie with drottningsylt, which is jam made with blueberries and raspberries. All the raspberry buns were baked, so the cookies went into the oven, and this is where things went sideways for me. It's a little hard to see, but the cookies overflowed and were really porous. Even fully baked, they were really soft and I could barely take them out of the molds. I set a pot of simmering water in with the gifflar so they could proof faster and jumped immediately into making a new batch of cookies. The ones I baked were so hard to take out of the molds. I think I wasted 5 cookies just to get one whole one out. I'm pretty sure the problem is that I replaced half the sugar with brown sugar, but I've done that before and it worked, so I'm not quite sure why it didn't work today. It's really important when you're baking for paying customers to always just get the job done. There's no time for freaking out or panicking or crying. You just gotta suck it up, be professional, and do what you gotta do to get it done. I have seen so many recipes go awry. Recipes that are tried and true and nothing has been changed suddenly not work for a while, only to then just as suddenly work again again at a later date. I have stories for days. So I remade the cookies as quickly and calmly as I could. While they were baking, I re-whipped the SMBC so that it was smooth and emulsified again. I added in all the blackcurrant jam I had made and mixed it in, but not all the way. I wanted kind of a stripy, multicolored look. The cakes came out of the plastic. I filled my piping bag and cut the tip and started piping. I was really racing to finish this week, and as my priority is always my customers, not the camera, I stopped filming for a while so I could get back on track time-wise. By the time Matilda came over to help me pack, we were looking good on time and I could relax just the tiniest bit. We went out to the park and waited for everyone to pick up their boxes. For all the drama this morning, everything turned out really well and I think the box was really cute. But then I think that every week.
And that's it for this week. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you'd like to make the raspberry buns, I already have a tutorial on how to make them here on YouTube. And even though the flavor profile is slightly different, I also have a tutorial on how to make the gifflar. To get Bageriet Lördag pre-order announcements, updates, and vlogs in Swedish, you can follow Bageriet Lördag on Instagram. For behind the scenes vlogs in English, you can follow my personal Instagram or TikTok, and it's at cecilia.talone on both platforms. For long form vlogs just like this, as well as recipe tutorials like the ones I've already mentioned, you can subscribe to me here on YouTube. I hope that you have a great week and that I'll see you again next week. Hej då!